Welcome back to the Dr. Des Show. Today we are talking all about my first hire and why it was a complete fail. So we're going to talk about hiring systems. We're going to talk about who should that first hire be in your business. And we're just going to have a candid conversation because I don't think I've ever really shared the story of the first time I tried to actually hire someone and what that process was like. But before we go into depth, make sure that you like this podcast. Make sure that you subscribe. Make sure that you share it with a friend. Make sure that you leave me some feedback because that feedback goes a long way. That's how other people find the podcast. That's how I'm able to keep going and doing what I'm doing. Don't gatekeep the information, okay? Because the information is free. It's out there. But make sure that you're sharing it and that this is a resource because this podcast is meant to be a resource for everyone, okay? So let's rewind it back to my first business that I started right when I graduated with my doctorate. So it was called Young, Black, and Professional. And it focused in on recent college graduates and helping them find their career at the college. So that was my first experience being a legit career coach. So that's kind of why I have a lot of knowledge about career coaching. I did that for a couple of years. So it was crazy because that business started growing in that I was doing resumes for people. I was doing career coaching sessions. And I started out as just focusing in on recent college graduates, but it turned into people with 10, 15 years of experience finding me and wanting my help into transforming their resume and doing all those things. So it just grew into something else. And that's kind of how it grew into the Public Health Club. But when I was doing that, I was on social media. So Young Black Professional has an Instagram account as well as a Facebook account and a TikTok account, right? I was doing all the things, right? And with the Instagram account, I was trying to figure out, okay, how do I grow my Instagram? And I was like, I knew that people found me through social media and, this was a big thing, but I didn't really have any insights into, okay, is this a viable marketing strategy for how I get clients? I didn't really know. I wasn't really tracking anything. I just knew okay, I need to post. That's what the people say, right? So I thought, okay, it would be a good idea to hire a social media marketing manager, right? And it was a part-time role that I hired for. I think she may have did 15 hours, 15 to 20 hours a month, something like that. It wasn't a crazy amount of hours. But it was enough to say okay, I need to develop content and get the content out of there. Now, my first mistake was I did not know what type of content to make that would convert into sales because it is a difference in being a social media influencer and making content versus actually being a business and using social media to actually market your business and your products and your content that you are and your stuff that you are doing and selling, right? And I think that, my thing was okay, let's just post the content, post everything. And that could be great, right? You got to get it out there. You got to post. But you got to have a strategy behind how you're posting. And that was literally the thing that I just could not connect on. I did not know. So I hired this social media marketing manager, right? And she was a little younger, but, she kind of really depended on me. And of course, it's my business. So I decide the direction the business is going and what I want. I showed her what I was doing and what I wanted. And she was just okay. So she started making posts and everything like that, getting the post scheduled and doing all of those things, right? But I was not seeing a return on investment. And I was just okay, I'm spending this money. I'm paying her. I'm paying her at this point out of my pocket because the business is making money, but it's not making enough. So some of that money is coming out of my pocket, right? And I was just man, okay, Des, what's going on? How are you going to really turn this into something that is going to get a return on investment? Now, I realized that with my target audience with that, the messaging, the type of products that I had, the type of doing one-on-one was not sustainable. I was doing career coaching for $75 a session, resumes were $75 a resume. It was, at first when I started out, I increased my prices as I went along, but even then it was still not really making the kind of money that I knew it could make. So I had to really think strategically about that. And I think, I ultimately made the decision to let her go because I was all right, this isn't working. I'm not getting a return on investment for having this marketing person come on. And a lot of it was a lot of it was me, right? Because I didn't have that clear path. as a founder, one thing that you have to remember is that you need to know enough about everything just to be dangerous, right? Like you need to know, because if you don't know enough about every little process in your business, it's easy for people to get over on you. It's easy for things to just not happen the way that they should, and you just have no knowledge on that, on what's going on, right? So even if you're not doing all of the work, you have to be able to make those strategic decisions. And that was one of the things that I was learning. And I'm so grateful for that first business because it taught me so many strategies that I put in place now, right? Now, let's go into me hiring for my consulting business, because that looks a little bit different. Now, with Young Black and Professional, that was more B2C, business to consumer. So it was like, all right, social media was that strategy and me getting you individuals to purchase, right? Now, when I'm thinking more like Strickland Health Consulting, LLC, that my consulting business, that was more B2B. My business is partnering with another business, B2B, right? My first hire was actually a subcontractor to help me do the work. Now, the differences in these is, one, I already had the money in the bank when I got that contract. So I get that contract and I'm doing some of the work or whatever. I'm invoicing, I'm getting, $10,000 coming through. So now I have the money in the bank to actually pay a subcontractor, right? Or I wrote them into the contract. So I know that, hey, based on when they pay me those funds, then they're going to get their funds and everything, right? So I actually went with one of my trusted colleagues that I had. She was actually my project manager now for the Public Health Club. So she actually was great at evaluation. So I did not want to do a whole evaluation report. And it's not that I didn't want to do it. I just did not have capacity. Because remember, I'm still working a full-time job when I started my consulting business and landed my first contract, right? So hiring her was like, okay, I know I need to do this because I can't do it all, right? I got this extra money, so let me just give her, and I think it was maybe like $5,000 or so. I can't remember exactly how much, but it was around in that number. I was like, hey, can you do this evaluation report? And she was like, yeah, I got you. So she did it, and she did an amazing job. And I trusted her, not that just knowing she was my colleague. I also worked with her before, right? She was also at some point like an intern that I had briefly. She was my intern briefly. Like if you ever ask her, she will tell you I stuck her in a corner and had her reading contracts all day. I don't remember that, but that's what she says. But in thinking about that, like we became partners. Like we even partnered on a program when we were at the Florida Department of Health together. So I knew how she worked. I knew she did well. I knew she was competent. I knew her work. And I made sure we had a contract in place, an agreement in place, because at the end of the day, I'm a business. So we got to have a contract in place. Here's her deliverables. Here's what she gets paid per deliverable, right? All that stuff was structured and it was set out for her. It was no like, guessing. Like, no, she knew exactly the time frame that she would get her money. Once, that evaluation report is submitted and approved by me, she knew all of those things, right? And I think that was when I looked at hiring from a different perspective, because now I'm like, okay, I know exactly the return on investment that I'm going to get from hiring her within my consulting business. And I was like, okay, that was a good hire that I did. Now I went from bad hire to good hire. And now even with the Public Health Club, so now business number 3, y'all. With the Public Health Club, the hiring, because it is a B2C, business to consumer, I'm trying to get individuals in, because it is that type of platform, what I need is not just going to be a subcontractor to come in and do an evaluation, right? I need to think about, okay, how do I strategically hire? And again, I had to think about what is going to really get me that return on investment. What is the dollar sign going to look like in terms of, can I keep this employee? Are they just kind of draining money? Or, am I actually making money by having them here? Are they making me more profit? And that is one of the major things that you have to consider when you are hiring anyone in your business. Are you going to get a return on investment for hiring them? Now, my first hire with the Public Health Club was actually an email marketing manager. So one of the things that my business really relied heavily on is that email marketing aspect of it, because I knew I could see the return on dollar signs with email marketing when you are doing a business to consumer type strategy, right? Email marketing is how you are going to make your money, okay? Because a lot of times, you can market on social media, but you don't own social media. You don't own that platform. Instagram shuts down one day. How are you going to reach your customers? Facebook shuts down one day, which they have previously, right? How are you going to reach your customers, right? If I can email them still because I have their email addresses. I know what they like. I can set, it's a lot that goes into email marketing, and I'll probably do an episode on that at some point. But like the very basics of it, like you use an email service provider. You're not just using like Gmail, like you're using something like it's called Kit. So kit.com is what I use. So it's an email service provider where you manage like a big list, right? So I'm not just sending y'all emails from my Gmail account. Like, no, it's going through Kit, and it's a whole thing. There are other ones like MailChimp and Constant Contact. There are so many other ones, but they all serve the same purpose. Now, I made that first hire as a contracted email marketing manager because I knew, like I said, whenever I send out emails, if I'm doing this right, I get return on investment. I get more people joining the club. I get more people in my courses whenever I do that emails and I'm following up with them via email, because now I have a direct line to who I want to purchase my products, right? So that was the thing. I was like, okay, this is where I'm spending, also where I'm spending most of my time at. So also one thing to think about is not only that return on investment, where are you spending a lot of your time at in the business, and what can you kind of delegate out? One of the things I've been very intentional about this year is trying to determine, okay, what are my CEO level tasks and what are tasks that I can actually delegate out? It's so many things that we think only we can do, but in reality, no, you can really train somebody to do the things that you need them to do. So I have to think about like, okay, what are those things that only Dr. Des can do in the business, right? Only Dr. Des can really kind of show up and host like the Dr. Des Show podcast, right? Like, so, that's a CEO level task right there, right? However, I can have somebody recording the podcast for me. I can have somebody editing the podcast for me, right? I can have somebody posting it for me. I can have, somebody else like clipping, like, cutting the tracks to make like reels for me, right? I don't necessarily have to do those things, but same with my business, like the email piece, I was doing all of it at first, but then I realized, okay, I don't have to do all of these things. Once they get my brand voice down and they understand how I do, and as long as I got the final say so and approval on things, we're good to go. Now my time is freed up. So I actually met my email marketing manager that I hired because of the membership that I'm in. So I'm in a Ladies Who Golf, a social club type thing in Atlanta. It's based in Atlanta, but they have chapters like all over at this point. But I joined that club because I wanted to get out of my comfort zone, go do something, go just try to experience other things in Atlanta and connect with like-minded people, executives, CEOs of other businesses, founders, VPs. That's what I wanted to do. And I seen that club as a way of doing that. And so far it has. It's been very fruitful. But I met her. We had a golf lesson, and then we had like a little social hour afterwards. I remember sitting at the table that they were at, and she started talking, and she was saying what she does. And she has a marketing agency. I said, oh, do you do email marketing? And she was like, yeah, I do that. And so she gave me her website and said, hey, let's set up a meeting. We set up a meeting, and I hired her. And it was literally as simple as that, as making that connection. And she has been amazing so far. She's just a pleasure to work with. And she does an amazing job with my emails. Like even my crazy ideas I always have, like she's literally right there. Like, okay, what do you need from me? What do you need me to do? As far as like the emails that are going on. And she understands that my emails should be making a profit, right? When I'm not just sending out emails just to send them out. Majority of the time, like, you're going to get a return on investment, and you have to understand what that is and how that goes. But I hired her as my first hire because I was spending a lot of time doing that and not as much time in the business and doing all these other things, right? So hiring her was the first one. The second one that I made with the Public Health Club was actually a project manager. So my friend that I had that I subcontracted with through my consulting agency for my first contract, I hired her again for my project manager because in her day job, she is actually a project manager. So I hired her to be my part-time project manager. And guys, when I'm saying I hired all of these people, they are not my W-2 employees. I'm not giving them benefits. They are my contractors. So they are in charge of their own taxes. I don't pay their taxes. So I'm giving them funds. I'm contracting with it, whether it's through their individual selves, or I'm contracting through their agency. Like my email marketer, she has an agency, the Chastity Nicole agency. And then my project manager is straight through her though. So with that, I was like, okay, after hiring for my email, I was like, okay, now what do I need? your girl needs somebody to come and get her organized because I am all over the place. I'm doing all of these different things. I have events going on. I'm sending out emails to people for events and doing this. I'm pulling RFPs, doing all these things. I'm scheduling this, scheduling that. I got meetings here, meetings there. And I was still working full time. I can't do it all. So next was a project manager. And I really went back and forth to say, okay, do I want a virtual assistant or do I want a project manager? I decided that I needed somebody that actually knew public health as well. So that's kind of where I said, okay, I want a project manager that actually understands public health. So she was literally the perfect fit. And we literally, when we have our organizational, our project management meetings, she gets public health. So she's able to make recommendations and able to pull things and look at things from a different angle, from that public health angle, that public health lens that we need, right? And so it's been definitely an amazing hire because now it's taking stuff off my plate. I remember thinking one day, I was like, I don't really have anything to do. Like, things are done. And it's like, it's always something to do. So like, it was just me, honestly, not really looking at my list and not really making a list at that point. But I felt freer. And I was like, okay, this is the feeling that I need to make sure I have. I don't feel like my head is underwater anymore. I feel freer. So I need to kind of continue that, right? So that was a big thing in having like that project manager there. And now like my third hire has actually been a community engagement coordinator. And that, because I have the Public Health Club, it's a membership community and everything, I needed someone to make sure that they're welcoming in people into the community, making sure that we're really building community, because that is the major aspect, making sure they have a go-to person to ask questions to, because I'm not always available. Like, you message me, it's going to take a few days because I get so many messages all the time, back to back. And it's like, okay, I have to sit down and go through it. And if I'm going through it every day, I don't get anything done because I get distracted. But, just understanding that, I think it was a lot of trial and error with the hiring. So if you're thinking about your first hire, that first thing I want you to think about is, okay, who is going to give me that return on investment, right? And then the next thing is, where am I spending the most time at in my business? And one of the things that I've done this year is I've actually made a list of my CEO tasks, which is a task only I can do, and then tasks I can delegate out. So let me look at what my email marketer is doing. Let me look at what my project manager is doing. Let me look at what my community engagement coordinator is doing. Let me look at this list of tasks that I can delegate out and see if those are things that I can move towards them, or those are things that maybe potentially for my next hire, I need to hire out to do, right? Because as this business grows, as it makes more money, as more people come in, I have to really think about, okay, how am I still really building community? How am I still making this a great place that people are learning and getting the value that they need from it? But also, how am I thinking about the business side of things? Because just because you want to help people doesn't mean you got to be broke. We talk about that all the time, right? You don't have to be broke to help people, right? You can make a profit and still help people and make an impact, right? That lasts. So that is really the major things, right? And guys, like for me, I just throw things at the wall to see what sticks, okay? And I think that it slows you up when you do that, but it's a learning process. And I feel like just about anybody who started a business, like you have had some aspect of just throwing things to the wall to see what sticks, right? And that's fine. But at a certain point, you got to get some guidance on how to grow your business, what you should do. And those are the exact things that we talk about in the Public Health Club. So if you are not in the Public Health Club and you have a consulting business, a membership community that you're trying to start, courses you're trying to develop, join. Because listen, we are talking all about those things, and you're not just learning from me, you're learning from other people who have done it and who are doing it well and continue to do it. And we have some exciting things that are coming up with the club, and I'm not going to share them in this episode, but I may share them in the next one. So we'll see. So stay tuned, guys. We got some exciting things that are coming up for my entrepreneurs within public health, and I'm super excited about it. But guys, hopefully you got a lot out of this episode. Hopefully you're able to take this and really think strategically about, okay, what is that date that I need to hire, and who do I really need to hire for? Because I want to make sure you're not wasting time, you're not wasting money, and you're actually hiring those people that can bring you that return on investment. But all right, guys, that's it. That's the end of the Dr. Dale Show. I will see y'all next time.